if he needs an apology, he needs Zelensky to recognize the position that he's in.
Which to you is what?
We're their patron. We're their best hope for the killing to stop and for them to emerge from this sovereign and prosperous. And we're also their best hope as a business partner. I mean, all Zelensky had to do today was put on a tie, show up, smile, say thank you, sign the papers, and have lunch.
In this video, we've got a few different clips of Scott Jennings versus the panel of morons at CNN. Each of the clips end very satisfyingly with Scott Jennings getting the last word and shutting up the unhinged lunatics. With that, let's watch Scott Jennings do what he does best, shut up woke idiots.
Can we be real for a moment that Doge is not about cutting money, right? It's not about spending. It's about shrinking government so that it'll be too small to stop Trump with whatever else is in this plan.
Why would the government stop Trump? Isn't he the head of the government? You're saying the government would be too small to stop Trump. If Trump's the president, why would the government, the bureaucracy, be actively trying to stop him?
Because he is shredding the Constitution and creating an authoritarian dictatorship. That's why.
And no matter who is in office, I'm going to hold them accountable. But more importantly, I'm going to make sure the government is working for the American people.
Both of you all made an interesting point, which is that your view is that Trump is shredding the Constitution. I'd like to hear more about that. But that it seems to me that you all both believe that the unelected part of our government, the bureaucracy, has a responsibility to resist the political leadership. Is that your view?
That's not actually what we
not
said.
at all
We
what I
said they are
Yeah, it is.
upholding the Constitution, the principles of the Constitution, and at times
How
we
is
have
Trump
seen,
shredding the Constitution?
My God, he's like.
I mean, seriously,
He
do we
doesn't
have to
believe in
give
the
you a
balance of
civics
power,
lesson
Scott.
that we have?
I don't know,
we put all power in the executive
How is
branch.
holding the
The legislative branch, the FBI. Now we're in control of the military. We're
Yes.
silencing media.
Commander-in-Chief,
This
head
is
of
what
the
you
military.
do
The
in a
Supreme Court of
dictatorship.
Are
This
you
is not.
suggesting that the president is not the commander-in-chief of the military?
I'm suggesting that the president is going to put in charge somebody who is going to contravene the Constitution. And at some near point, this conversation will look very silly for you because it will be obvious. And right now, you're
Wait,
gaslighting.
he's gonna
but when we
put-
get to the actual
he's gonna
rubber on the
put-
road of
I'm
this,
sorry.
it will be clear.
I'm interested in this conversation. He's going to put someone in charge who will contravene the Constitution. Like who? What do you mean by that? The president is in charge of the military, is he not? You said he's going to put someone in charge of the military?
The president is in charge of the military. That is how it works.
He was elected president. We, according to the Constitution, vest all executive authority in a president. And the concept that the military should be an independent agency or that the bureaucracy should resist the political leadership of this government is extraordinarily dangerous.
That's what we said. That's a straw
not what
man.
we
It's
said.
That's literally
ridiculous.
not what we said.
I'm just repeating back to you your own
I
words.
did not.
Well, I think I've changed my mind on everything. You're telling me Donald Trump, as president of the United States, is going to take over the military? Oh, what's that? He's already in charge of the military? Oh, okay. Forget it. I thought that was a good point. We've got another case here where if you just scratch the surface at all to these dumbass leftist arguments about one idiot said authoritarian dictatorship and they're shredding the Constitution. Then when Scott said, what do you mean exactly? They go, oh, I mean, how many examples do you need? And then they proceeded to give zero. And then the guy says, you're going to look silly in this conversation when Donald Trump puts someone in charge of the military to contravene it? What are you talking about? Why would he? He's in charge of the military. It blows my mind. How do these people get a platform? Like, what does that mean? And the left keeps describing Doge as like a loyalty test to Trump. Sending an email to everyone saying, hey, could you just outline, what you've accomplished in the last week or whatever exactly the words were? That's literally a test to see if you can do the bare minimum of responding to an email. Because if you didn't, especially with what we know about waste in the federal government, there's a strong likelihood you didn't even see it. And if you oppose doing it for some reason, it's because you've got something to hide or you have nothing to report or you can't really say anything positive about what you've accomplished recently. And they didn't like how Scott put it, but they're absolutely acting like it's the federal government bureaucracy's job to resist political leadership. But it only seems to go one way. It only seems to be when Republicans are in office, because the vast majority of federal workers are left-leaning. There's a difference between a loyalty test and determining if federal workers will take orders from the top and do what they're told to do. Many of these federal workers have expressed that no matter what Donald Trump says, they'll do what they think's best in their role. It's unacceptable. Whether a Republican or a Democrat is in office, it's unacceptable. That's like working in any other job and the CEO, you're 20 positions removed from the CEO and he sends down a job that he wants everyone to do and you say, I think I'm going to do it my way. You wouldn't do that because he's the boss. He's the main boss. Anyway, let's check out this next clip.
I don't know if he needs an apology. He needs Zelensky to recognize the position that he's in.
Which to you is what?
We're their patron. We're their best hope for the killing to stop and for them to emerge from this sovereign and prosperous. And we're also their best hope as a business partner. I mean, all Zelensky had to do today was put on a tie, show up, smile, say thank you, sign the papers, and have lunch. That's it. And he couldn't do that. And this followed 10 days of being difficult in private and now 1 day of being stupid in public. This did not have to go down this way.
Okay.
And however you feel about why it started, why it's going on, who's right and who's wrong, we can help them in this and come out okay on the other side, and he's making it hard.
Now, first of all,
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I actually agree with Scott. And everything that he said was basically right.
Wow.
I know. I'm going to get killed on social media for admitting that, but so be
he'll
it.
follow through on something, and he is not.
yeah,
So that was his point.
Well, I have a short answer on this.
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
So the short answer is the Trump administration believes that if Ukraine goes into business with the United States, that in and of itself is a security guarantee. If your interests become our interests, we're going to be interested in making sure our interests are secure. So it would have been wise for him to understand the economic deal, the mineral deal, is a security guarantee in and of itself. And he lost sight of that today in the argument premeditated.
I don't know.
I think Zelensky misplayed it in the room, and you can and we could disagree about J.D. Vance's position on it or agree on it, but either way, Zelensky certainly had been briefed on what the right way to handle this was, and all he had to do was walk in there and say, "Thank you. I'm really grateful to be here. We want to be partners with the United States. We're grateful for your leadership. Where's the papers, and what are we having for lunch?" That's all he had to do. And look, the posturing doesn't have to occur now. If he is serious about wanting peace and ending this war, you don't have to keep posturing as a tough guy. Everybody knows you're tough, all right? The Ukrainians are tough. They're brave. They're fighting a much larger country. Everybody knows. The question for Zelensky is, can you take off the military uniform and put on the uniform of diplomacy? He failed the test today.
Doesn't it seem ever since we started just shipping money willy-nilly to Ukraine that Zelensky has felt completely entitled? There's zero question that he's insanely corrupt. I mean, who knows exactly how much of that money is funding their war efforts and how much is going in bureaucrats' pockets. But how do you think Zelensky got this way, to feel this entitled? I think he was enabled by the Biden administration. So now Donald Trump and J.D. Vance sit down with him, trying to help him stop the killing in his country, help them retain their sovereignty, maintain the United States as an ally and a business partner, which Scott Jennings pointed out. The more things that the Ukraine partners with the U.S. on, the more their interests become our interests, our interests align. And the U.S., being America first right now, is going to protect its interests. And if one of their allies in that interest is in trouble, we're going to come to their aid. So it's even offering them more security. I wonder if any of these idiots that wear like Ukrainian flags and put them on their X profiles, whatever, are they ever embarrassed? Because this is so stupid. I don't know what the president and what Vice President Vance want from Zelensky. I personally wouldn't even need a thank you. I would just want the killing to stop if I were in their position. And I would just want an ounce of humility and stop playing the tough guy all the time. We get it. You're tough. Anyway, let's check out the next clip.
Baker, who is a longtime foreign correspondent. He covers the White House for the New York Times. He said, having served as a Moscow correspondent in the early days of Putin's reign, this reminds me of how the Kremlin took over its own press pool and made sure that only compliant journalists were given access.
Okay, can we just address this dictator business? I'm going to quote from some statistics put together. So our old friend Chris Cillizza, who calculated that in the first month of the Trump administration, the president took 1,009 questions. Hardly dictatorial behavior. Same stat for Joe Biden, 141. And I would remind you all that in 2023, the Biden administration revoked the hard passes of 442 journalists. And at the time, the White House Correspondents Association took, quote, a non-committal stance. So if you're worried about
Yeah, but why
transparency,
were there-
Trump is being
Just,
far more
but
transparent
seriously,
than any
Scott,
recent
why were their press
administration.
passes revoked?
I don't know.
Was it because they didn't go to the White House frequently? Because
I don't
that
know. They
happens in
lost their
every-
access.
That happens in every
They
administration.
lost their
But
access.
besides,
So,
the
442.
Biden people never called on James Rosen from Newsmax, and
Yeah.
he's a real legitimate
But James
reporter. They never
Rosen
called on him.
was allowed in the White
press
House.
room.
They are really running out of things to criticize Donald Trump about. They need to stop trying to go down this road of dictatorial and authoritarian. This is the most transparent administration I've seen in my lifetime. It's not even close. Then Scott Jennings throws out those statistics that in the first month, Donald Trump has taken approximately 1,009 questions. And in his first month, Biden took 141. Did you ever see Biden? Did we always have to find stuff out second or third hand? Was his press secretary always lying to us and being proven incorrect? Then you've got the Doge side of things, where they have a website that you can go to, and I believe it has its own Twitter account where they list every single thing and how much money they're saving that they've cut. So the whole lack of transparency thing is such a weak argument. And if that's what they're trying to go on, it shows just how weak their case against this administration is. Oh, and by the way, do you notice they completely glossed over the statistic of how many questions Donald Trump has taken? And then they try to make an excuse for Biden revoking 442 press passes and suggest Donald Trump's doing anything different, but they're saying he's trying to control the press or silence the press, whatever he's talking about. I mean, you can't go 2 articles in any newspaper without Donald Trump's name coming up. So I don't think anyone's being silenced. But we want to hear from you. What did you all think about these clips of Scott Jennings and these various CNN panels? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.